Hello everyone. In this video we will learn how to find out the horizontal asymptote of a given function. So here we are given a function which is square root 9x squared plus 2x minus 3, and we need to find out the horizontal asymptote. So what is actually horizontal asymptote is y is equals to a when you have x approaches to positive infinity, f of x gives you a limiting value a, or if x approaches to negative infinity and the limiting value of f of x is a. That means that it should be a number rather than an infinity, right? So it should be a real number. Graphically, what that means is if the function, which is here y is equals to f of x, when you take x to positive infinity, the limiting value is some particular number. Over here this line is y is equals to 0. So when you x approaches to infinity, this gives us the limiting value is 0. So we say that y is equals to 0 is the horizontal asymptote. Similarly, if you have a line y is equals to 3 and you take the x to negative infinity and the limiting value of the function is 3, then we say that y is equals to 3 is the horizontal asymptote. So that means that we have to just find out the limiting value of f of x while x approaches to positive infinity or negative infinity. So let's solve this one. Now, one more thing that we should know is when you have a square root, when x approaches to either positive infinity or negative infinity, and you have a square root inside the function, that means that we need to do the rationalization. So what you have to do is you need to multiply and divide the additive inverse of this one. That means if you have minus over here, the additive inverse is a plus. And if it's a positive here, a plus here, then the additive inverse is function with a negative. So the additive inverse of this function is 9x squared, square root of 9x squared plus 2x plus 3x. So we multiply with that number and divide with that number. Now you can see that this is, if we consider this is a and this is b, then we have another a and a b. So we have a formula a plus b into a minus b. That gives us the square of the first one and the square of the second one. So here this first one is this. In both the cases, so we take the square of the first one, then we write down a negative sign, and then we take the square of the b, the second one. So the second one is 3x. We take the square of this one, and this one comes as it is in the denominator. Now this is a square and that's a square root, so they cancels out each other. You are left with 9x squared plus 2x, and this gives us 9x squared with a negative. So this is plus 9x squared and this is minus 9x squared. They cancels out each other. We are left with only 2x divided by square root of 9x squared plus 2x plus 3. So there are rules that if you have fraction and x approaches to limit, this limit is the same as if you divide by the highest power of the denominator. So what is the highest power of the denominator? In the denominator, the highest power of x is x, because here is a square root, so they cancel out the squares. So the highest power in the denominator is x. So we divide numerator and denominator by x. Now, since we have a square root, so inside the square root, and x means if you have x squared, that means x. So if you if you divide by an x inside the square root, then that becomes x squared. So it means that if you have this thing, and if I divide this by x, so I can write x as this, because this will cancel out this. So we are again left with x, right? So I can write x as x squared square root. Now I can take square root common, so x squared divided by x squared. Since x approaches to positive infinity, that's why we take a positive x. In case we were taking x is equal to negative infinity, we would divide it by a negative x. So we divide this by x, the numerator, and every term in the denominator. That cancels out, you are left with only 2. Now, as I said, this is not in the square root, so we just divide it by x. But the one which is here in the square root, if we divide it by x, then by this rule, they all becomes x squared and x squared. So this x squared cancels out with this one. This x cancels out with the square, so you are left with only x. So here we're left with 9 plus 2 divided by x and plus 3. Now if we apply limit, the denominator is not 0, so we can apply the limit straight away. So 2 is a constant, we do not apply limit on it, or the constant limit is constant. So the limiting value of a constant is that constant. Similarly, again, here is a constant, so it stays as it is, and limit x approaches to infinity of any number divided by x. That means any number divided by infinity, that is 0. So you have 0, and again 3 is a constant, so we write down 3 as it is. Now this is square root of 9 is 3, so we have 2 divided by 3 plus 3 gives us 6, and that cancels out with 1 over 3. So y is equals to 1 over 3 is our horizontal asymptote. Thank you.